So I'm often asked what challenges I had and what things I learned from directing, co-directing, and writing Turbines, which was a indie low-budget feature film. And I learned a lot of things, some of which I feel were things that I didn't know I could do, and others were things that I would rather not do again. So for instance, I was pitched the idea from Igor Brekenback, my film partner in Australia, and he said, "Can you write me a script from this?" And I said, "Sure." And I wrote a feature script, almost kind of like a rough outline, in about a week. And then I fleshed that out into a full script in a second week. And then he and one of his friends read it over and gave me all these notes. And so within a month, I was able to go from a 1 or 2 page treatment that Igor gave me to here's the shooting draft. And I didn't think that that was possible. But it was a really good idea, first of all. And secondly, we were so excited about it that it's just, that's what I'd wake up and I would write. And so that was really exciting to learn that that was possible. It was also really great to see that, like, if you believe it'll happen, it will happen. Sometimes you have to say, well, I want to do this, and that's what I really want, and it's not going to happen. So you have to allow yourself to be flexible and say, well, this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to get. But at the end of the day, you need to have actors in a location, saying dialogue, and doing actions on camera. You may not have the camera you want, but if you have a camera, there you go. You may not get the first choice actors, but if you get actors, there you go. Maybe the dialogue isn't working, or the action doesn't work in the space, or the place that you wanted isn't available, or you can't afford. A million things can go wrong. As long as you are able to adapt and be flexible, then at the end of the day, you're going to get the shots you need of the action and dialogue. There's always an option. One of the best things that I learned from Igor is there's always a way. It may not be what the director wants, but if the director is willing to work with the limitations of the day, then you're going to get it done. And that was a really great lesson. A couple things that I learned that I feel like which were great to learn, but I would rather not do again, are some portions of the production were very loose, and I think part of that is because my visa had a finite time and I had to leave, so we had to shoot very fast. And also we had a very limited budget, so when you're dealing with no money, a lot of times you have to go, well, this is the guy, because they're going to do it for free. Or this is the location, because that's the one we have for free. Or we need 10 people, but we have 2 people, and we have to shoot today, so that's what we're going to do. I like to be very organized and prepared, and it was very difficult for me to work in some of those conditions. And like I said, sometimes you would get something amazing out of it, and you would realize, I don't need all this time, I don't need all this organization. I can be flexible and get something great and surprise myself. But other times, I felt like this needs an extra week. Let's come back 2 days from now. Let's wait until we can do it the right way. And so I find now that there should be a happy medium between being structured and organized and prepared, and on the other hand, being flexible and allowing the opportunities to develop out of the difficulties. I get a lot of people asking me if I would want to change anything that I did in Australia, or like the highs and lows, or the goods and the bads, would I do everything the same? One of the difficulties that I had when I went to film school was I was challenged by a friend of mine in the industry to go get 4 years out of my 2 years. And he said, you're gonna kill yourself, you're gonna have a nervous breakdown, but you basically have a studio. You have all this equipment, you have post-production, pre-production, production facilities available to you 24 hours a day. He's like, you need to build your career out of those 2 years. And so I did. I completely had a nervous breakdown. Because I probably have 5 years worth of films that I did in those 2 years while I was going to school and working and doing projects. So I was always exhausted, I was always hungry, and I was always broke. And I didn't actually go out and do a lot in Australia because I was always working on a project or somebody else's project. I felt like if I go to Australia and I get 4 or 5 or 6 years worth of work in 2 years, that I will have extremely succeeded. And so I'm very proud of that, and I now am going to be in the next 2 or 3 years of my life in post on things that I shot in Australia. So I don't need to do any new productions. If new productions come my way, that would be great. But I have so much backlog that it's going to take me several years and lots of fundraising in order to get all that content out. And so I'm glad that I did that. I do think it would have been better to strike a balance and to have done more going out and seeing Australia, going out and doing things with people. But I'm a very all or nothing person, and so I wanted to build a career and work as much as I can. I have a new project. I have 2013, my big project was to get the Lesbian Western finished and to get it out to film festivals. So I spent the whole year in post, fundraising, doing all the marketing, building the YouTube channel, building the Facebook page, and getting the film out. And it was very successful. I haven't made any money off of it, but I've gotten a lot of numbers as far as Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. And growing a presence is very important because that will springboard into other things. So 2014, I have 2 projects. One is a short film called Videndum, and that has already been shot. I shot it in Australia with international cast and crew. And so 2014, I'm going to put that into post, and I will market that, release that to film festivals, and have that come out. And that is twofold because it's also going to be part of a feature anthology film from Australia called Tales Past the Midnight Hour. And that's very exciting. So I'll be able to do 2 things with that one project. My other project is a new project which I've spent all of 2013 in pre-production, and that is a feature documentary called Upstate Boys. And at this time I'm just going to say go to the website, which is upstateboys.com, and that will give you all the information. We also have a Twitter account and a Facebook account, and they're all under the name upstateboys.com. So go there for more information. We're going to be shooting in 2014, and hopefully we'll have the film out this time next year. So with the Upstate Boys project, we are in pre-production and we're looking for financing. Now we are thinking $100,000 will enable us to go from pre-production all the way through to release. Now a quick background is the story is taking place in upstate New York, where I'm originally from, and it's about myself and a guy I went to high school with. I never knew him in high school, but he subsequently graduated and became a victim of Friedreich's ataxia, which is similar to Lou Gehrig's disease. It's a progressive, degenerative, adult-onset illness. And he graduated from high school, moved out of the house, and then ended up moving back into the house, getting into a wheelchair, and he's lived there ever since. So for the last 15 years, he's been in a wheelchair in his parents' home. I, completely on the opposite of that, have been a rock climber and have traveled all over the world being a rock climber. So we are going to go to Yosemite National Park, and I am going to climb Half Dome, which is a 3,000 foot high big wall rock climb. And then we're going to go to New York and we're going to shoot Dylan, and we're going to compare and contrast the difficulties of climbing a big wall out in the remote wilderness by yourself and being in a wheelchair and negotiating the day-to-day life of doing normal activities, getting into bed, going out of the house, feeding yourself, dressing yourself, cleaning yourself. All those things Dylan has to do by himself, and they're very hard. On the surface, those two lifestyles have nothing in common. But in talking to Dylan and spending time with him, we found we have lots of things in common. So the production's going to be obviously involving a lot of travel, and it's also going to take a lot of time, and then post-distribution, film festivals, all that kind of thing. So anyone who has any resources, especially monetarily at this point, would be great. So go to upstateboys.com for more information, and please contact us if you'd like to support the film. My message for people in Australia who want to do film and TV work, whether it's in Australia or coming to the US and doing stuff in America, is that it's very easy to travel back and forth between the two countries, but it is just as difficult to stay long term. So for instance, if you come to America from Australia and you get a work visa or you get a student visa, it's very easy to come over and do that and stay for 3 months to a few years. It's much more difficult to get citizenship and stay full time. The same with Australia. It was very easy for me as an American to go to Australia and get a 2.5-year visa and go to school. It would be very difficult for me to get Australian citizenship and stay there long term. The difficulties are different as far as industry work. There is an explosion of things going on in LA, from zero money all the way up to multi-$100 million projects. So there is tons of work. It's very difficult to get in because there are so many people. Australia has, at least feature film work, a very small number of feature films. There's a lot of indie stuff and low budget stuff, but as far as like Hollywood level big budget stuff, there's maybe 10 of those done a year in Sydney or in all of Australia. However, the number of people is very small compared to LA. So it's much easier, you know, in LA you're fighting 10,000 people, and in Sydney you might be fighting 100 people. So it's easier to make inroads in a smaller pond. So if you can build yourself up in Sydney or Australia in general, get as many credits as you possibly can, work on professional sets, and then come to the US and maybe make some inroads if your goal is to move here, then that, I think, would be very smart to do. And the reverse is also true. If you want to get a lot of really good experience, you could go to Sydney and befriend some people and work on projects there for a few months or a few years, come back, and you would have that experience. You would still have to make the connections in LA in order to get anywhere, but it might be beneficial to blend the two together. Again, this is Shane Borza. I'm a filmmaker living in Los Angeles, and I'd just like to thank IFW and especially Yolandi Franklin, who I have known and admired for a long time. She worked with me on Turbines, for this opportunity to talk to you, and I encourage you all to look me up online and contact me if you have any other questions. Thanks so much for your time.